The pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change. Are you bringing value to yourself and to others? Are you doing the work that matters to you most? And are you, living your most authentic life? Lead with yes and just say yes. Look yourself in the mirror and say yes. Today's the day.
The real success that you've achieved in life has come in the last 4 to 5 years in the authenticity. That's the power of this.
Hello there, it's me, Steve Mellor, and welcome in to Growth Ready, the podcast that allows high performers to reveal the reality behind what it means to ready yourself for growth, the personal and professional challenges along the growth journey, while also allowing the high performance executive coach in me to satisfy his curiosity toward what drives optimal performance. On this episode, we welcome in founder and president at CareerMinds, Raymond Lee, who in recent times has been committed to bringing his whole self to the world.
Being able to show up as my authentic self really allows me to lean into what it means to be growth ready.
An entrepreneur, speaker, author, and podcaster, Raymond uses every path and medium at his disposal to gain understanding of what readies both himself and others to dare to bet on themselves and chart a path that leads to fulfillment and growth. Hey guys, as we get started here with the episode, I want to just take 1 minute of your time to make a request for you to subscribe and rate the show. For our show to be easily discovered by other potential listeners, we need our current listeners, that's you, to take the time to not only subscribe, but to also rate the show. Whether you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, whatever platform of choice, there are typically ways to be rating the show. So go ahead and click something like that 5th star and be sure to take that additional time to leave a comment or two about why it is you enjoy listening to the Growth Ready podcast. Your efforts on this will allow our show to be more discoverable, which means we're going to find more listeners and continue to have that significant impact on the community of human performance and personal development that I know you are all benefiting from by being listeners to this show. Please go ahead, take the time, subscribe, rate the show today. Hey, and while you're at it, why don't you share it with a few people as well? I appreciate you guys. Let's get to the interview.
Okay, welcome into the most recent installment of the Growth Ready podcast. We are on location in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania today. And I got to say, I cannot be more excited for the opportunity for my guest, Raymond Lee, to be joining us, because to say that this has been a long time coming is an overstatement. But before, Raymond, I let you say another word. You know how it works on my podcast at this point, is that you'll have to answer the question that everybody has to answer before we go any further. And that is, Raymond Lee, what does it mean to you to be growth ready?
Wow. Well, first of all, Steve, welcome to Philadelphia. It has been a long time in the making. You and I have met years ago, and you, for context, interviewed me on my podcast when I was launching it. And I thought about this question around what does it mean to be growth ready? And as I think about being growth ready, authenticity is the word that comes to mind. And I say that because for me, being able to show up as my authentic self really allows me to lean into what it means to be growth ready.
So we lead with authenticity. And again, the beauty of the show is that sometimes I have guests that appear in my inbox and I get to know them for a matter of seconds before we press record. And then I have guests like yourself on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. We've had the luxury of getting to know each other now for at least probably 3 years.
Yeah.
And something that has been consistent with you since the moment we shook hands back at the 𝒆𝒚 conference we met, is that you've been a consistent version of yourself. I've never experienced Raymond any other way than I experienced him that first time that we met, which is a testament to you and how you live into your authenticity. My immediate question is, what is it about your career to this point that has allowed you to understand that authenticity is, in fact, the way we need to be leaning into growth?
So I equate that into how you connect with people and how people relate and trust what you're bringing to the world and bringing in the impact that you're making on them. And I feel like when you're running a company and you're trying to inspire your team to follow you, when you're authentic, it allows them to relate, connect, and believe in what you're all about. And I feel like that authenticity is everything about who you are as a person, your identity. And I think that so many times we want to kind of, we want to be perfect. We want the world to see our perfection. And I think the authenticity it's your battle scars that you bring to the world. It's sort of like, you're representing the whole self. And I think when people see that, they're willing to follow you, which really translates into anything's possible.
There's something you said there which I think is so important to capture immediately. It's not about what you've experienced, what you've gone through. It's about your willingness to bring such experiences to the world. It's the decision to go from this happened to me to this happened for me. That's kind of what I'm hearing right there straight away, is for anyone who leads others and never even actually put that to one side, to go to what you said there about the impact on other people. Like, your decision to be of impact on others must be aligned with your willingness to share what it is that you've experienced to then be of that impact to others. When did you start noticing this? Because we're going to get into the story of CareerMinds and how it's come to be what it is today, but where was it along your journey, or what were some of those examples along your journey where you saw that it's not just, these things aren't just for me to experience, they're for me to actually live with and go to the extra mile of passing them along, sharing them in some way with those around me too?
Yeah, well, I mean, this. It occurred probably 4 years ago when I was not really fully in touch with every aspect of who I am as a person, all the way from childhood. And it was really just getting connected to my identity and who I am as a person, the good, the bad, the ugly. And that happened, I'd say 4 years ago. And it was December of 2021. And it was interesting because you mentioned CareerMinds. I started CareerMinds back in 2008, almost 18 years ago. And we were just growing and, slowly growing, but not really, we were growing, but never really understood what the outcome was going to be. Like, I knew at some point I wanted to sell the company, but I didn't have that clarity around what the outcome or how that was going to look. And it was interesting, around December of 21, I went on this retreat and did some real soul searching about who I am as a person. And it was at that moment that I got this real clarity and connected with points in my life that made sense. And it was at that moment that I realized this is the day that I'm going to really show up as the true Raymond, the full Raymond. I sold my company 3 months later in March of 22. It was almost as if the clouds parted and everything was just like, oh my gosh, this is the pathway. And it was at that moment that it's like everything now seems so clear And it's like I know exactly what needs to be done and how I need to show up. And it's like it makes so much sense.
So you spend 19 years building a business. You become truly aware for the first time in your life in December of 2021 that there's a version of Raymond you've yet to show up as.
Right.
And in making that decision, no less than 3 months later, you say, it makes sense for this thing that I've built to now be owned by somebody else.
That's right.
Help us get to that decision a little bit, because I think this is very relatable. Not necessarily the part about owning a business. Not all our listeners own businesses, but I think I'm hearing a potential understory of how one might possess something that matters so much to them. And it's in this awareness of self that we can start to maybe relinquish some of the control. But I don't want to go too far. I want you to sort of speak us through, like, what happens in that 3 months for you to say, this makes sense. This is the right thing for Raymond, knowing that Raymond's showing up as his truest self now.
Yeah. Well, so for context, CareerMinds, we are a virtual provider of outplacement and leadership development coaching services. So we built a virtual model that was disrupting a very brick and mortar model back in 2008. We were so early to our time in terms of virtual coaching and virtual delivery. So we were building the business. We raised some venture capital, so I took on some investors. And I would say after 6 years, we finally hit market acceptance when we broke even and we realized that there's a market for these services. Fast forward, the pandemic put us on the map.
Sure.
Right, because obviously in March of 2020, everything went virtual. And so the idea that you would need to meet face-to-face to be coached or help with career transition services, it absolutely transformed our business overnight. So that was March of 2020. Over the next 2 years, we saw this tremendous opportunity where we started developing our platform in 100 countries, 80 languages. We saw so much growth over the next 2 years. So we knew, the investors, we knew that there would be a transaction at some point, but it wasn't clear exactly what it was going to look like and when it was going to be. And so it was around the beginning of 21 where we started getting calls from strategic buyers and private equity around the business. And for me, I wasn't yet sure what the home was going to look like in terms of where we would ultimately be purchased and who it would be. And where it became really clear was this one opportunity came up from a company that was a B2C job search coaching platform that was owned by a private equity firm. And they said, we want to take your business, your company, your brand, and we want to build a business around your platform and your company's name. And at the time, I had gotten some calls from other strategics where they just wanted the platform. They were going to lay off all the employees. I would get this really big payout with a nice cushy title. And that just didn't feel good.
Right.
And so I just wasn't, looking at these opportunities, and we had so much growth and it felt really good, but it was a struggle to figure out, like, where's CareerMinds meant to be? And so during that 3-month period, this one opportunity came, and I spoke to my now boss about the idea of us selling to this company, and they're backed by private equity, and he sort of described what he was wanting to do in his vision, which meant not laying off any employees and really building the business. But for me, there was a tremendous amount of trust because, when you're acquired by a private equity firm, things can change after a few weeks, a few months. And so I had the clarity that this was going to be the home, but also had the trust and willingness to say, I'm willing to hand over where the company is today to another set of owners, enjoying the journey with them. And that 3-month process was just so clear, and how everything unfolded just felt so right.
So that immediately ties back in one of your initial responses to the authenticity question is relationships. Like, in that awareness of Raymond stepping into his fullest self, you found this comfort and clarity to be able to say, well, what does that look like when shared? What does that look like when returned and received? How will I know what could ever be truthful if I'm not showing up with a version of truth in myself too? So I'm just hearing that in the sense of, for you to have such clarity around yourself, it was almost as though you now became someone with a heightened awareness to what authenticity, to what real, to what truth could be in another person as well. Like, does that resonate with you?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt really good to be able to say to the team that day that the journey is going to continue. And it definitely, I was kind of leaned into even this idea of authenticity. It felt really good, I guess is the one way to describe it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in my own experience, when I look at my own journey, what's crazy is that, I left swim coaching in October of 2021, and I went through a very similar soul searching period around the same time that you will have done so too. For me, what came out of that was, yes, becoming more truthful to Steve, yes, being more consistent with who he is and how he shows up. But I'd love to get your perspective on this, because there's this underlying like selfish component that comes with authenticity, where you also make a decision like, what do I want? What do I want from this life? And how do I need to start showing up in my truest self? Or what will showing up as my truest self maybe do to serve that life? And so I'm curious, just when you think about what you were going through during that time, how much did what Raymond wanted from life play a part in some of those decisions too?
Yeah, that's a great question. This was in March of 22. I was presented an amazing opportunity to continue the journey. And, we had a full transaction. Our investors who invested in CareerMinds early on were happy with the exit. And there was a moment where I was sort of like, in my mind, I'm thinking, what's next? And, it's like, it was so anticlimactic, the actual sale. Like we jumped on this call. It was 9:00 on a Wednesday morning. The attorneys were on, and the documents were signed. The due diligence was brutal. It was a long process, and there were moments like, is this really going to happen? And so I remember that morning, and it was like, okay, documents assigned, congratulations. And it felt so transactional. And I got off the call, and I was sitting in my office, and I was like, that's it? And so now I'm, shareholder, founder of CareerMinds, to W-2 employee, president of this new business unit, and the next chapter starts. And I was really, there was a moment where I said to myself, do I really want to continue this journey? And I went through a period, I would say probably 6 months, sort of in a little bit of a funk, because I underestimated the weight of what it was going to be like now that this 18-year journey that chapter's closed.
Right.
And so there was a period where I had to sort of figure out what was going to be next. And I had someone on our marketing team said to me, you should be the face of the company. Like, you really, get out there and start evangelizing the great work that you've done. You have a fantastic team. They got the business. You have to get out there and start really looking at ways to promote yourself, promote the company, the success. And they said, have you ever thought about starting a podcast? And that was the moment where, first of all, I was like, absolutely not. Yeah. And which I would say would be a part two of the question, like a slight number two is curiosity with Growth Ready. I really struggled. I was like, all right, I got to start with authenticity because that's really at my core what allowed me to be Growth Ready. Yeah. But then the close second for me was curiosity. And when they said, why don't you, you have a great voice, you have a great sort of mind at pulling out the best in people and a good storyteller. And I was like flattered, but at the same time, a little bit of that imposter syndrome. I'm like, I'm no Joe Rogan. Like, there's no way I'm going to do this. And it was at that moment where I felt like I had this identity shift that allowed me to sort of lean into that next chapter.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, something else I'd love to get your thoughts on is we get a lot of these terms on the show all the time. People have answered the question straight up with curiosity before when I asked them what it means to be growth ready. And what I love about a term like curiosity and even authenticity to an extent is that there's always some sort of subjective, experience-based definition for each individual person. They've gone through something that makes curiosity mean something ever so slightly different to them than the person that maybe said it before. Yeah. But I feel as though curiosity at its best is when we step in with curiosity without any walls up. We're not looking for a potential outcome. We're literally just going in completely saying, I'm leaving myself open to all outcomes, and I just want to learn. I just want to become better educated, whatever it might be, heighten that awareness. How much do you feel the authenticity piece is important to executing curiosity to the fullest extent?
Yeah. I think the two work hand in hand. Authenticity, true authenticity, is a recognition that you're not perfect and things aren't always going to work out. And you come to grips with that. Like, you can't control the outcome of everything. You have to sort of trust that, things, you're going to grow and develop. So that curiosity is going to lead to growth and develop. And so when I was thinking about doing the podcast, I was like, you know what? It's going to be messy. It's going to be uncomfortable. And it surely was. I mean, I remember sweating on the first two recordings that, it was awkward, but I got through it. And I was like, okay, I wasn't perfect. And it never is going to continue to be perfect, but I get better and better at it over time. And so I think that authenticity sort of is a foundation that allows you to be comfortable with the curiosity and what that curiosity is going to bring.
Yeah. I think the part of your story, which I really love, and I've heard you explain it now a number of times, is just that you had so many. If this was about building a business and exiting a business and getting the payday, that you weren't short on opportunities to do that, and that there was an identity piece in this business that meant too much to you, for you just to simply say that can't be the final chapter, at least Raymond's final chapter, right, with what happens to CareerMinds. And so when we look at the timeliness of the authenticity piece, the awakening that you had there back in December of 2021, and then the impact that your decision-making can have the impact that being authentic can have on your decision-making, I now want you to hammer the point home for our listeners in the sense of Why do we need to own authenticity? Why? Because we've heard it. It's been spoken about so much for so long now. But there's still people that are showing up to work with a mask, not being their fullest self. There are people running businesses, walking into a networking event and saying, okay, who should I be today based on the outcome that I'm trying to get? And I'm hearing from you is that don't do that. Mm-hmm. Don't do any of that. Think about who you are and think about the way in which you can do that, show up as that version of yourself consistently. So you've gone through it. You've been a version of Raymond, and then you've explored what it means to be your truest Raymond. Why should someone own that work? Why should someone truly grab a hold of it and say, yes, it's time for me to be my most authentic self? Like hammer the point home for us.
Well, I think at the root of it is fear. I think that as you go through your life, your career, the underpinning of it is fear and anxiety that restricts you from recognizing when it's time. And I do think that it's also experience. I think as we mature and we get wiser, I think it just becomes so much more clear. And the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change. And everyone's journey is different in terms of when they hit that breaking point, when they realize that fear, what you were describing is it's a transactional experience.
Yeah.
You know, you're doing all the things that you feel like are what's required in the moment. And I think over time you start to begin to really feel that pull. And you start to see other people experience the goodness of authenticity. You know, and they're like, wow, that person's just living their best life. They are living an authentic life. And I think people see that, and it's fear that holds them back. But then, you know, the weight of that fear builds. And I see it so many times with people that I'm interviewing that you ultimately hit a breaking point, but it's different for everyone.
Yeah, this XY axis immediately just appeared in my mind as you were talking about staying the same and change. I see this life's journey and the years ticking along, and we're comfortable being the same, and then suddenly, like you said, there's this breaking point, and it goes, oh, actually no, there is actually a greater benefit to the change, and the fear that gets in our way to own that. I love the way that you put the fear of staying the same versus the fear of change, and leaning into one over the other. What you just addressed there, though, is that what you're able to learn from those around you that have already lent in and said, I'm going to be my most authentic self, and then the results of that for them. I think sometimes what ends up happening is we have these established, successful people talking about the importance of authenticity, and they go, well, did the authenticity come before the success, or did, which one is it? And for me, I think your story is a glowing representation and body of work that supports the need for the authenticity to come first, because it would be easy for us to naively just say, yeah, Raymond was a success before he decided that authenticity is the way to live life. But the real success that you've achieved in life has come in the last 4 to 5 years in the authenticity, right?
Yeah.
That's the power of this.
It's so true. The capacity that I've achieved in terms of like my ability to do the work that I do, whether it's professional, personal, just things, hobbies, things that I just feel like I have so much capacity. The question now is, for me, it's, being able to prioritize, because I feel like I can do so much. And then it's sort of like, okay, where do I really, what excites me?
Right.
You know, and then having to say no to opportunities that it's a great place to be in, but yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah, it's. I love watching you think. Yeah, I love getting you a little uncomfortable here because for me, you just again reinforce the authenticity with the curiosity. Is that you're asking better questions straight away because you're being authentic. You're asking questions like, "What excites me?" Like that. We're not saying, "What do I want to do today?" We're not saying, "What's the best thing? What's the first thing? Sorry, that I need to get to today." You're actually looking at all the options in front of you and saying, "What excites me? Like when I think of the truest version of myself, what do I gravitate toward? Not what's going to give me the biggest financial return, not what's going to allow me to go see whoever it may be. What excites me?"
Yeah.
You know, like for you, how often are you asking that question, do you think, at this point in your life?
I ask it pretty regularly when I, at the end of an interview with a podcast guest, at the very end, I ask the question on the outtake, are you bringing value to yourself and to others? Are you doing the work that matters to you most? And are you, living your most authentic life, like in terms of the time that you spend on this world?
Yeah.
And I think those three questions leads to a reality check. If you are really true and you ask that question, am I truly feeling value in the work that I do? I think that ultimately will lead to a change.
Yeah. Yeah. Value, impact. I love these terms that are consistently coming up in your insights so far, which mean, and we have to get to the podcast because the first person you called when you were thinking about starting a podcast was?
Ding, 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 ding. Steve Mellor.
Right, that's it. So you came to me and you told me what you wanted to do and why you wanted to do it. And I couldn't have been more delighted for you just because I knew you to enough at that point to know the value and the impact you could bring through the podcast. The podcast is called Clocking Out.
Yes.
It's been going now for 2 years almost?
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just finished episode 60.
Yeah. Well, you go ahead and tell folks about what the mission of the podcast, like what is your podcast here to do and serve?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I started this journey years ago in terms of the lead up to clocking out. CareerMinds is a business. We're helping individuals who are laid off from their jobs, and we help them transition into new jobs. So it's outplacement is the industry. And I published a book called Clocking Out back in 2018. It was published by the Society for Human Resource Management, and it's stories of individuals who have clocked out of a career that wasn't necessarily fulfilling them into a new career. And so it was a collection of 10 stories. The one notable story that I will share was my mom, who worked as a court reporter for over 20 years to take care of my brother and I. My parents divorced at a young age. She was a high school, she was an English teacher and didn't make a lot of money. And so she chose this career as a court reporter for financial gains. And she did it for 20 years. And the thing that I learned about this career, my mom absolutely hated court reporting. She was great. She was a great typer. She was one of the best in terms of her, court reporting skills, but she didn't like the work. She just made good money at it. Her true passion was archaeology. And at the age of 50, she decided she's going to go back to school and get a master's degree in archaeology. And the genesis of Clocking Out was really around my mom's story, which Steve.
Oh, yeah.
It was episode number 3, and I shared that story because oftentimes people are in careers for some other reason. It could be influenced by family. It could be some other influence. It could be for financial reasons because you're going to make a lot of money. But it's not necessarily what what brings you value as a person.
Yep.
And so over my career and also through CareerMinds, I've just met so many people that are living a career for someone else, and it's not really themselves.
Yeah.
And so I started this podcast as a way to have conversations with people who have worked in a job or some situation, like my mom, that just wasn't fulfilling to them. And they just, over that period, they just, the desire to continue to work in that career, became very stressful. And they clocked out. And so this podcast is around conversations of really interesting people who have chosen a new path.
Yep.
And it's sort of bringing that story to life. And you were one of them. You were
Was.
you interviewed me for the first three, so
Yep.
it was my story. I wanted someone to share my story of how I clocked out of corporate HR to start CareerMinds. And then also my mom's story, clocking out of working as a court reporter to being an archaeologist.
Yep.
And then you were my first guest.
Yeah.
And the journey began.
The journey began. I'm so glad that you shared your mom's story. I was probably going to ask you to do so anyway.
Yeah.
Mainly because, not until you obviously answered the opening question the way you did, but you talk about an example of authenticity.
Yeah.
My gosh, like at the age of 50, it's like I've been doing, to your point, I've been doing all this work to serve something other than myself for 50 plus years.
Yeah.
When am I going to say, you know what, I'm the priority now. I'm going to do this for me. You got that. You literally got that example from your mom of what it means to truly live with authenticity, right?
Yeah. When you just saying that made me think that when I was working in corporate HR, I was 15-year career, and I was working in a field that I made good money, and it was a stable job, but I just wasn't really feeling like I was doing the work that I was called to do. And it ultimately, that career was from a guidance counselor saying, you're great at helping people. And initially, she was like, you should be a psychologist. I actually got a bachelor's degree in psychology. And then ultimately it led into human resources, just because I've always sort of was, and just loved helping people. And that's what I feel like I was called to do. But HR was just not the career to do it. And it was seeing my mom working as a court reporter. I was 35 years old, and I always had this dream of entrepreneurship. Like, I just wanted to be an entrepreneur and start a company. And I actually got the CareerMinds.com domain, days into my first job out of college. I was like 22 years old.
Yeah.
And that domain sat in some repository somewhere, and I just paid the annual fee to renew it.
Sure.
And it was 15 years later. Talk about an idea that was just brewing in my mind, and I'm like, holy cow. I think it was subconsciously my mom's story about being a court reporter and seeing her not happy doing it, to some degree was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And then it was 35 is when I left corporate and took the leap of faith, started CareerMinds. And then now, sort of fast forwarding it to this podcast, just seeing her actually become an archaeologist and actually do the work and see how happy she was. I think that authenticity has sort of been an underpinning to my journey. And, I don't think I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for my mom.
No doubt. And what a blessing to have, arguably, as an important a person in your entire life than your own mother, to be the example for what you represent now, to encourage you to lean in and do it the way that you're doing it. And I think what's been wonderful about the last couple of years is that I see this evidence of, as Raymond's lent in to his truest self, doors have just consistently opened in terms of what excites me. And then the ability to overcome any sort of fear around that. Because I remember when you called me about the podcast, that was not a confident call. That was a guy that was still high on the fence. Like, he was pretty comfortable on that fence. Like, and who knows, to this day, if I'd not been my usual, just like, let's go do it, maybe you would still be on that fence right now. I don't know. But the fact is, it's like, you have a willingness, even when there's some fear at play. Because I'm sure there's been things that have come with this CareerMinds has grown too, that there was some fear at times. And yet you found, from what I understand, having gotten to know you, the ability to reach out to someone when the curiosity starts and you're very aware of the fear that comes with it. How often are you immediately saying, hey, who can I talk to about this? Because it sounds like it's part of your game plan, if you will.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. I've come to be comfortable with asking for help and knowing that I can't do it all and don't have all the answers. And knowing of your success with your podcast and how you and I connected, and our roots being, Southern Louisiana and just where we came from, it felt very comfortable. It was a comfortable ask.
Yeah.
And I guess the nervousness for me was like, in my heart, I was like, I think he's going to say yes. But there was this doubt that I was like, this dude's busy. Like, I don't know. Like, this is a big ask. I'm asking him to interview me for 3 episodes and then he be my first guest.
Yeah.
But in my mind, the clarity was like, I got to ask because I don't see any other pathway to launching this thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The fear should not have been with me. It should have been with my wife, because that was the ask. It was just like, I'm always going to make myself available, but is she going to look after, at the time, a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old while I'm off recording podcast episodes with Raymond?
Yeah.
But hey, she said yes. So that's all
great.
that matters. Well, as we start to look towards wrapping this up, man, like where I really want to use this remaining time is, let's say someone's been sitting on something for 15 years, the same way you did on CareerMinds.com, right? You had the idea, and then it sat for 15 years. And this isn't about having an idea to start a business. This can just be something at a gut level. You just go, I'm on this earth to do something specifically that I know is bigger than what I'm doing right now. And again, it may not, like your mom didn't start a business. She made a career change, and you've interviewed so many people on your podcast that haven't necessarily started businesses, but they've committed to what they're most passionate about. And to use something you said earlier as well, it seems as though a lot of people look at it as, how can I be of most value, like you said earlier, and how can I be of more impact?
Yeah.
So if that person's listening to this episode right now, where they know there's a version of themselves that has yet to come to the surface that the world has not seen, what is it they need to be able to do to be ready, simply ready to say, you know what, it's time? What are you telling that person right now that's listening?
Lead with yes. And just say yes. And look yourself in the mirror and say yes. Today's the day. You make that choice. Just say yes, and today's the day, and I'm going to start taking steps. And those steps are so baby steps. Like, they're not big, insurmountable activities that you have to do, because I think what oftentimes we do is we tell ourselves stories as to why we're saying no. I have this job, I have a family, I have kids, I have bills, I don't have enough time. Just say yes to something, one activity, the one thing that genuinely is going to bring you happiness. Just start doing that one thing. And you don't have to, like you talked about CareerMinds and the website, and I just started coaching people and doing resume writing and helping people, just start having conversations about that one thing, and just create space for that, and then start committing to investing time into the thing that really matters. And in my mom's case, she enrolled at a college while she was working 40, 50 hours a week as a court reporter. And she, at 50 years old, she took one course, one archaeology course. She committed to a 3-hour course on a Wednesday night at this class. You can't, I mean, if you can't commit 3 hours a week to take a course, that is something that is really like inspires you. You have to relook at your calendar.
Yeah. No, but I love, and I love
It's
I love that challenge. That's important. It's really, your challenge is right now to say, quit making it about the destination and just focus on the step.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And she, over 10 years, she took the one course a night, and she ended up getting her master's degree. And I'll tell you, it's the message is that life is short. You're gonna don't live with regret. My mom ended up passing 6 months after she got her master's degree, and she successfully was able to lead one national archaeological dig, which was a post-Hurricane Katrina dig on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And she led a dig that was for a French colonial burial site of a building. It was a building that was completely decimated, and she led this archaeological dig, which was connected with her graduating, and it was that was her final dig, and she ended up passing 6 months after graduation, and so she was on a 10-year journey to get her master's degree. And so the message is you just don't know how much time you have in this world. So start taking steps today. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you shared that part of the story. And I think to bring this to what Growth Ready is about, your story is one of an individual that said, I want to grow. What is it that's getting in my way for me to be ready to grow? And like that time in December of 2021, for you to simply do the work on yourself to get that awareness of, hey, I'm getting in my way. Like I'm making this more difficult than I need to, And so for you to mention that truly just sad part of your mom's story is that heaven forbid someone's listening to this right now and they're in that same place that you were in 5 years ago, and they're just saying, I'm going to accept this as the status quo, and I'm not going to necessarily go step into why is it I'm not, in fact, ready to grow, because authenticity was clearly your solution to where you found yourself back in December of 2021, even though your mom had passed away many years before then?
It was 2012. So she has been, she would be like 72 now. She was 60 when she died. So it's been 12 years ago, 14 years ago.
And my only reason for even asking that is it would be, the story would almost make more sense if upon your mom's passing, that jolted you into making some decisions and doing things differently straight away. But it was you doing the work on you that helped you get past that final little barrier internally. And again, heaven forbid anyone listening to this has to go through something for them to get the awareness to bet on themselves, to commit to themselves, to convince themselves they are in fact ready to grow. But what you're encouraging our listeners, I think, through your story is that don't wait or assume that things in your life are going to shake you like that to get you to do that. It just comes down to you. It comes down to you saying, am I willing to invest in?
Yeah.
End of story. Am I willing to invest in me? Right?
Yeah, it totally is. And I was just thinking about your point about the amount of time, and something that I learned about my mom's life is when she died in 2012, I was just a couple of years starting CareerMinds. And when I wrote the book, Clocking Out, which was 6 years later, and she was one of the chapters of her story, and I dedicated the book to her, I had come to learn about the work of, and I think I shared this with you, David Kessler wrote a book called Finding Meaning, the Sixth Stage of Grief. And the work that's been done around grief is, there's 5 stages and it ends with acceptance. And it was when I heard about this 6th stage of grief, after I wrote the book Clocking Out and had dedicated it to my mom and how she clocked out of being a court reporter. And I, at that moment, realized that my whole platform, like the work that I'm doing today, is really around the meaning that my mom brought to me. And the work that I'm doing is really around, I found meaning in her not being able to live out this long career as an archaeologist. It was really around being authentic and doing what you're called to do. And it was really, it's so subtle, but that work began, because it was well after CareerMinds that I was like, holy, I have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Authenticity opens the door to greater connection, greater relationships, being of greater impact, and eventually being able to live a life where you're bringing the most amount of value, not only to yourself, but to others. That's everything that I've taken from our conversation in its purest one sentence, let's say.
Yeah.
At this point now, when you look ahead to the years and years to come, what are you hoping that approach is going to do for you now? What's left, in other words, for Raymond to still go conquer, to still go discover, to still go achieve, knowing that this is how you're going to be consistently showing up in the years to come?
Yeah, I feel like the impact that I want to have is helping people identify their true self. And through my story, my mom's story, through our story of the journeys that we've been on, is helping people see the light, but then what's the pathway to getting there? And that's what I feel like I'm called to do.
Yeah. Well, you're doing it. And I get to watch sometimes very close,
Yeah.
sometimes from afar, but always cheering and always encouraging. I think anyone listening to this right now, make sure, not often I promote other people's podcasts on my own podcast. I am competitive after all, Raymond. You know this about me.
Yeah.
However, Clocking Out, if there was a production company that was consistently delivering podcasts with a very similar theme, I think you and I would be part of the same company. Because I think we're both doing very similar things in terms of the impact we're trying to have. We're just doing it in a very different way.
Yeah.
And I love the work that you're doing with Clocking Out. I love watching what's happened every single other month. I feel as though CareerMinds is acquiring something and growing and going from something, from something else to something even bigger. And it's just a testament to your commitment to yourself. And so I just want to acknowledge that while I get the chance to do it with microphones on so other people can hear me doing it.
I appreciate that.
But at the same time, before I let you go, I do this with every single person. Where can we learn more about you, CareerMinds, Clocking Out? Tell everybody where we should be going to learn more about everything you've got to offer.
I would say LinkedIn is my home. I've been posting there quite a bit around the work that I'm doing with CareerMinds, the podcast, promoting it. I share some personal things that are going on. So that, I would say, is the best way to find me.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you playing point guard and getting this whole thing set up for me to come out and see you. And I knew this would be worth the wait, and it's been even better than that. And so, brother, I really do appreciate you. I appreciate this time and this opportunity for me to better understand what it means to Raymond Lee, of what it means to be growth ready.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming all the way up here for this. This is great.
Of course. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Cheers.
Thank you for tuning in to Growth Ready. If you liked what you heard and are feeling ready to grow, be sure to leave a 5-star rating, subscribe to the show, and share the episode with someone you know is ready to fuel their growth journey today. We love our community, so don't hesitate to reach out to us at podcast@growthready.com. And until next time, we are Growth Ready, and you will be too.